Greetings. I'm just doing a quickie live stream. I don't know if anyone's here, but hopefully this will record and it will store itself on the YouTube channel for TarotLumination. I'm going through a lot of shifts and changes very deep inside here. Perfectly expected and natural occurring because of, I always blame it on the planets. We've got major cusps going on right now, and I'll show you those in a minute. In my observation and in my opinion, when we have a cusp period, in other words, let's say Mercury moves from Cancer to Leo, there's a shift. Somebody somewhere feels it. And wherever that point, that degree lies in your chart, that's where you will feel it. So that's for everybody. And that's for the whole of planet Earth, frankly. The Earth is as sensitive to the motion of the planets and the stars and the solar system as you, as myself. How you respond and how you behave from there is, you could say it's random or it's by choice. I prefer to think it's by choice. I know for many years of my life I lived on what I would call just my instincts or my autonomic nervous system, or just fueled by testosterone. I can now look back and I can understand that as I grew from infancy to young adult, I lived through different sequences. Primarily, I now associate with the personal planets: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So I believe I was symbolically like perfect, according to my sun sign and the degree and everything. And as a newborn, the only energy that I was aware of was the fact that, I don't know, there's something happening. I just arrived on planet Earth. What's going on here? What's going on? And eventually your eyes open, you start to hear and you see and you smell and you taste and you feel. You got your five senses and that's about it. Also, you have your intuition, you have your pituitary gland, and you have your, is it the amygdala in here, and the hypothalamus. Anyway, these fundamental organs inside the brain which correlates to our instinctive behavior, how our hands move, our eyes move, how if we hear something over here, we kind of go, huh, what's that? To affirm it with our eyes, perhaps. So on and so on. And it all works beautifully because it's been evolving for millions and millions of years. And so I noticed that, okay, so as the child grows, it becomes more connected with his feelings. Like if something happens that's scary, it goes, and starts crying. If something makes it feel good, feels good, like all the senses combined go to like, that was good. Like, oh, for example, I was breastfeeding on my mom, and I think afterwards I felt good, and I kind of went, oh, that's wonderful, and so on. Mercury, as you go through the planets, Sun, Moon, and Mercury, that's when you start communicating, like ga, 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 and you start hearing sounds and start uttering sounds, assuming all your senses are intact and you are not deaf, dumb, or blind. Then they all start coordinating together and they work very, very quickly, and they evolve, and you develop this thing called language. That's Mercury. And then moving on to Venus, by this time you're a fully conscious little being, perhaps frolicking around on the floor, crawling, walking even, perhaps running around, perhaps on your first little toy or your little bicycle or tricycle or something, or little wagon or something like that. And you understand that There's this thing called relationships where you are relating to others and others are relating to you. Usually in a healthy situation, that would be a healthy, loving, caring home with a loving, caring mother and father. And that's different for everybody. But you realize there's a profound relationship between yourself and these other principal beings in your life, in your world. And then you go into the Mars section. Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, where you realize, wow, I am something. I am a look at this. I'm a being. I'm a human being. I have magic powers. If I scream loudly enough because I'm really upset and I don't have my ice cream and I want ice cream, eventually mommy or daddy's going to get me some ice cream or something like that. Or if I get really upset because my needs are not being met and I want I need what I need and I have to go and get what I need, and so I take action. Like when it's time to eat, and if I can still walk around and climb around the place, I might go to the cupboard and get a snack. And I don't ask for permission. And then I don't apologize if I made a mistake. If somebody might come up and say, "Hey, you little boy, who do you think you are stealing cookies from the cookie jar? It's not even that time of day yet." And then I would go, try and catch me. And so on and so on. And then, of course, you grow up, you reach youth and young adulthood, and things really, really start to take off. Jupiter, you reach age 14, things really start to expand. Your hormones start coming in big time, and you start to realize that there are consequences, because fairly soon after 14 is like the halfway cycle from your first Saturn return, which would be at 29 and a half. So at like age 14 and a quarter, that's a time of critical mass for a lot of kids, where there are these profound moments of realization where the kid, or me or you, may be at serious odds with the upbringing or the environment or your school or your neighbors or your family or something like that. And so there might be conflicts, but how are they resolved? Venus through harmony, Mars through war, whatever it turns out to be, it turns into your life experience. And if you had a really, really rough life of some kind, and it was nasty, like other people were nasty to you, you might evolve into a certain type of person who wants to seek retribution. Or you might choose, like, okay, people were nasty to me, but I already understand the laws of nature. If I deliberately seek vengeance, I'm just going to put fuel on the fire. And we learn and grow and so on. So that's Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. But after that, when you get into your 20s and 30s, a lot of it feels like it's out of our control. And we're doing what we think we should do, depending on your culture, your country, your upbringing, your religious background, if any, the language or the politics where you were raised, whatever it might be. And then a certain life unfolds, whatever that might be. And then you reach a certain point where you realize there's something else going on here. I'm not just a robot. I'm not here to just act, react, action, reaction, action, reaction, action, reaction. There's something more. You start to realize that you can do things like choose to be happy, even though you might feel like shit or bad things are happening to you. And you think, that's weird. Like, how does that work? How can you be happy when it's very obvious that you have a lot of reasons not to be happy? Things like that. And you start to notice things that seem to be above and beyond rational explanations, like things like coincidences or divine intervention or inexplicable things like love. I'm like, what is that stuff? Where does it come from? So on and so on. And we grow and evolve. And that's kind of fixed into us in our template, our astrological template when we are born. Everyone has their own little template. It's like DNA. And we try to make do with what we've got. It's different for everybody, obviously. Anyway, as we evolve and grow, we as an individual with our particular fixed template, in other words, you're born with Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in a certain configuration in the solar system at that moment in time of birth, which is often used for the Western type astrology. That's why astrologers like to ask you, what's your birth data? Oh, where were you born? What time, what day, what month, what year, what location, and what hour of the day. And they pump all of that data into a computer now. You don't have to sit there like the old days with paper charts and all of that stuff. And the astrologer can dig in and pull up an astrology report for you. And you might recognize it or not. Like if you wanted one or something. And you could say, oh, I am like that. Oh, I'm like a Leo. Oh, wow. I'm like a Leo with a Virgo moon. Wow, I didn't know that. So you start to realize that certain configurations have certain recognizable patterns. Someone with a very strong Aries profile might come across as someone who's very strong, confident, has leadership qualities, has pride, integrity, hopefully, and courage, is willing to take the first step. An example might be like a first responder or something, someone who's willing to go in where others are running away. A military guy, for example, where you're willing to go to the fight rather than running away from abuse. You go into the fight knowing that if you don't take them down, they're going to take you down. So on and so on. And you could go on forever and ever. There's thousands of astrology books. There's thousands of astrologers on YouTube and so on and so on. And I'm just providing my little opinions as we go. Now, getting to the point that I wanted to put on this little video is that as the planets are whizzing around the solar system, there is empirical evidence that things change as a certain planet moves through a certain sign or a certain house in a certain part of your horoscope, or the horoscope for the world, for example. I like to do daily horoscopes for the world. Treat the world as a singular organism. So we always start with Aries on the horizon, for example. That's like the default setting. I'll show you an example right now. Let's just do that just for fun. So I like to work from a paper ephemeris, but you can also do this with a computer. This is where I would get a lot of my data for doing a personal reading, for example. So this is a chart for today. It's hard for me to show it like this. That's why I normally do my astrodoodles, but this is a chart for today. It's got blue and red, but in my charts I would have green and red. As you can see, there's huge amounts of blue, and that's between the Pisces vibes and the Cancer vibes, and they happen to be very harmonious with each other. And in between is the Taurus energy, which happens to be very harmonious with the water signs, Cancer and Pisces, for example. So these angles here represent what's called a trine, lots of harmony, and a sextile here, lots of harmony and opportunity. So this is, in terms of the time, we're going through a very brief moment in time where there's a tremendous amount of harmony in the planets. Oh, sorry, I just touched something. A tremendous amount of harmony in the planets, the way they relate to each other in terms of their geomagnetic influence with each other, and how that impacts us here on Earth. So my feeling is like right now, at this very moment in time, I am personally experiencing a very deep, profound lull, which also happens to correspond with the Cancer new moon. Typically 1 or 2 days before a new moon and 1 or 2 days after a new moon, there tends to be a very, very gentle energy where things seem to subside. Where like 2 weeks earlier, things have been chaotic and full of mayhem. And it's just like the tides. The tides will go up, full tide, heavy tide, and then a tide pulls out. And it seems to just sit there for a few hours, and then it starts to pick up again. Till it's on a full surge. And so we're feeling that right now. I am feeling it personally. I'm very grateful right now because I'm allowing my body to decompress, because I know it's going to be heavily activated later on in the month with some of these factors going on. But right now, okay, let me see if I can show you on this chart just for thrills. Let me do it again. Like, for example, over here. So it's got Taurus on the horizon right now. Normally I like to have Aries on the horizon, but I can't do it without screwing up the view. So over here is the Cancer sun, Venus in Cancer, and the moon is already moved on just a tiny little bit in Cancer. And it's heading towards the cusp where soon it's going to be in Leo. I know I will feel that personally. The energy will shift in very subtle ways. That's just one tiny example. All of this is permanently shifting, but at this very, very moment in time, there's this wonderful sense of astrology where there's a calm, and with the Cancerian energy, it's very, very sensitive. So my feeling, it's like a sense of energy which is going like this, where the Cancerian vibe just wants to hunker down, be quiet, be safe, be cozy, like a little cat taking a nap. And then it's going to slowly start to wake up again in a day or two, when the moon picks up into Leo, for example. So on the ephemeris here, this is where we just had the Cancerian new moon, and it's a quiet period. And in 2 weeks, things are going to be very tumultuous. And before that, in about 10 days or so, we're going to have a crisis period. I can tell you that because I'm looking at the charts and that's what I see. I see all sorts of little things wiggling up and flying around all over my chat here. What's going on? Are there people out there watching? I don't know. Sometimes I could do a whole show and nobody's here. Okay. Well, I guess it doesn't matter, but because it's going to record anyway. But thank you if someone's sending little emoticons or something. Thank you very much. So, might as well enjoy it while you can. In the background of these charts, I'll show you something here again. Excuse me. In the background of this particular chart, there is a very severe axis of red ink, okay? And it's all focused on Pluto. So these are very stressful aspects going on in the background, but because they're so close to these harmonious aspects over here, it's almost like these don't exist, but I guarantee they are there. Now, this is for the world, okay? This is for the whole world. But these same planets are transiting exactly for you somewhere in your chart. For example, Pluto is in Aquarius at 1 degree right now, over here. And this is a crisis point itself because we're heading over a cusp. This is the cusp between Aquarius and Capricorn. Pluto is retrograde, going backwards. The sun is always in direct... Damn it, I lost it again. Sun is in direct forward motion, always going this way. Sun is in Cancer, then Leo, and so on. Leo season will be coming up in a couple of weeks. But anyway, I'm taking advantage of this gentle, sweet, comfortable period right now to let my body sort of go floppy. I'm not really doing much if I can possibly help it, because things are going to become very supercharged and riddled with crisis and desperation, because a lot of this harmony will disappear. Things are going to get a little weird. So the crisis points, I'm just going to mark it over here. Okay, we just had the Cancer new moon. Might as well enjoy it. It'll take 2 weeks to ride up to the full moon. Now this full moon is kind of weird. Okay? So over here, this is going to be the full moon. And this is a 2-week cycle. Okay? So the sun is going to be in Cancer all that time to the very last second. And we are going to have a Cancerian sun and a Capricorn moon. Okay, so the sun will be opposite the moon in terms of the astrology, and we'll see a chart at that time. Now, interestingly enough, within a matter of hours, according to the Western astrology and this particular ephemeris, the sun will shift into the sign of Leo at roughly the same time. Leo, roughly the same time that the moon will shift into Aquarius. Now, isn't that freakish? So it's like having this weird double full moon. One full moon is going to be Cancer sun, Capricorn moon. That's this one here. And within a few hours, it's going to be a Leo sun with an Aquarius moon. But it's not an official full moon. It will be, in terms of the angles and degrees, it'll have the similar sort of energy to the full moon from the day before, but the signs will be different. Instead of Cancer Capricorn, it'll be Leo Aquarius. And people will feel it or not feel it. Another thing I wanted to mention about it, let's just pick one particular crisis point and then I'll illustrate it from there. One thing I wanted to emphasize with the crises points, this one in particular is extremely severe because it affects the whole world, especially the United States, which indirectly affects the whole world. And this is going to be even more critical over the next 4, 5, 6 months or so, because we're hovering and it moves extremely slowly because it's Pluto. And this represents not only the energy of the cusp of change from Aquarius to Capricorn, but also back from Capricorn to Aquarius. Because what we're doing is we're heading into the Aquarius season for 20 years. It's a 20-year journey here. And it's going to be tumultuous, okay, especially for the United States, but that will have the equivalent effect to the rest of the world. What's also interesting about this time is that a lot of people, I would say, are waking up. And that's because we are in these crises points where when we're on the cusp, especially with Neptune and Uranus and Pluto, or Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, these are the impersonal planets. They're way, way out there, and we tend to feel it not in our waking consciousness, but more in our gut, our soul, our heart, in our deep, raw instincts that there's something either very profoundly wrong or profoundly beautiful. And it's very, 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 very... There's a lot of things that are extremely bad because what's happening, as you know, as we've talked about it many times, is that the United States is dying. the astrologers like myself, we all know this is going to happen. It's pretty much written in the stars, as they say, and the founders, the people who wrote the Constitution and made it, well, the founders knew that this day would come, and it would be very, very challenging, and so it is. Hold on, what's this note there? Hi, quick question. Are we having 2 Cappy full moons this year? Is that normal to have 2 full moons in the same sign in 1 year? Oh, I have no idea. Okay. Well, we sort of... I would have to do homework on that and get back to you, because I don't have all the charts in front of me. But sometimes we have 5 eclipses or 6 eclipses. It's very rare, but it does happen. I mean, if you want to do the fuzzy approach to astrology, kind of like I do, it's like in 2 weeks from now, it feels to me like we're going to get 2 full moons simultaneously. We're going to get a Sun in Cancer, Moon in Capricorn, and we're going to get a Sun in Leo, Moon in Aquarius, pretty much at the same time, because it's happening on the cusp, okay? And those cusps, when things happen right on the cusp, it can be just a little disorienting. Again, I like the analogy of driving on a road or a highway or something, and the signage is not too good, and the roads kind of go like this, and then you have to figure out, oh, wait a minute, am I going to go here or I don't know. So what a lot of people do, they just kind of instinctively gonna go, oh, I don't know, and they just let themselves go on one or the other, and they don't think about it, and they just carry on. Sometimes people like myself, I would go like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Pause, check my charts, figure out what's going on, and then make decisions, and then go forward. 2 Capricorn full moons. Well, to have a Capricorn full moon, if the way people describe it, means you would have the Sun in Cancer and the Moon in Capricorn. And the Sun is in Cancer only once per year for about 4 weeks. And there's maybe a Cancer new moon or a Cancer full moon. Just depends. And so in that regard, I don't see how you can have 2 full moons in the same sign each year. Now, I can't do the homework right now, but let's say there's a Leo season coming up to the next full moon. Okay, if you want to look at it this way, on the 19th of August, there's going to be a full moon where the Sun will be in Leo and the Moon will be in Aquarius. And that's a real full moon, Leo Aquarius. But we're also getting Leo and Aquarius, Sun and Moon, in about 2 weeks. So that's sort of like having a double full moon, but it's technically not. I'm not very technical. I'm very fuzzy about all this stuff. Anyway, let me get back here a second. I want to go to my notes. By the way, I'm in Las Vegas. This is not Los Angeles. This is Las Vegas. I just sometimes get a little sentimental. Because I had a long life in Los Angeles. I'm not going to talk much longer. As you can tell, I sort of don't have much strength at the moment. So, I'm just going through some, chart moments and things to be aware of. So, while we're having this moment of gentle harmony with the trines and the sextiles and the planets that I pointed out earlier, might as well enjoy it, because in the background there is monumental turbulence and crisis and upheaval all across the world. That particular Let me do it again here. Now I'm going to go personally and for the world. Now for the United States, this is a point of critical mass. It's absolutely critical. It's historically profound, and that we're dealing with it right now. Think of Pluto energy: birth, procreation, life, and death. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Think of Pluto as absolute power. There's so many stories we could talk about around this cusp here, but it is essentially the death of the first cycle of Pluto as we enter the next cycle of Pluto. You could call this a Pluto return, if you want to, for the United States. It's been going on for several years because it actually began in January 2020, and it'll be finished fairly soon because it moves so slowly. And so that's why we are seeing things at a historical level here, where it's been going on for years, especially the last 3 years, especially since the 6th of January in 2021, and where we are now. And we are heading towards a point of critical mass on the 5th of November in the United States. And that is all part of the death and rebirth of the United States. And nobody knows exactly what it's going to look like. But it's extremely tumultuous because when you look at this point here, this represents the elites. And all they care about is money and power and control. Well, they already have all the control. They have all the money. The only thing left that is insatiable is power. And the more power you taste, the more power you want. It turns into a bloodlust. Literally bloodlust. They don't matter, and they don't care anymore. It's just collateral damage in order to retain power. Just look what's happening with China. Okay? Look what happened in World War I, World War II, and so on and so on. Look what happened in all the big empires and the shifts and the changes of empires over many thousands of years. So, anyway, so at this very moment in time, that particular degree that I pointed out, which is actually on this ephemeris, is right here. At this particular point, it's very critical mass for the United States, but that percolates to the whole world. It's on the cusp because very, very soon, July, August, and then September, we actually reach the cusp itself. 0 degrees. Okay? So 2 months, we have 2 months of that. And that, of course, leads us into November the 5th. So basically, right now is, what is it, the 6th today? So we have July, August, September, October, and November. Over the next 4 months, the chaos, the confusion, the insanity is going to multiply and increase and turn more and more into a crisis. And a lot of the crisis, my feeling is, will be exemplified by people who already have become used to having all the power and the money and the control, who are starting to realize that they're losing it. They're losing power and money and control, and they risk losing all of it because the other side of that equation, the other side of that little dot Pluto, is the rest of the world and the rest of humanity, the rest of the United States, which has become extremely uncomfortable with the extreme hyper-consolidation of power and money and control into a handful of elites, literally a few 100,000 people who own and control the world. It's not acceptable. And people are waking up and realizing, oh my God, this is 1776 revisited. Because July 4th, 1776 was a landmark moment for humanity. Nothing like that had ever happened before, where a body of people declared that the existing models of rulership and leadership, power, money, and control are no longer acceptable. Because up to that point, everything was done in the form of empires, royal families, dictators, monsters, leaders that would just rape and pillage and kill and keep doing it in order to take whatever they want. And once they have everything they want, then they would use supreme dictatorial rulership to maintain that and keep it. And if some other neighbor, country, or population decided, wait a minute, we want what you've got, then another war happens and another empire or a queen or a king or an emperor or a warrior goes in and attacks the other one. And so you get the birth, procreation, and death of empires over and over and over again. And it correlates very, very, very closely with the 248-year Pluto cycle. Okay? So anyway, here we are. We're at another one. And this is a pivotal one because we're going through 1776 revisited. And translation, it means we the people are waking up. In the United States, there's about 350 million people, and about 100 million of those people, about a third of the population, are fully conscious and fully aware that there's something extremely out of whack. And they are doing something about it, because what they want to do is to reconstitute the Constitution, to get things back to this wonderful thing that was declared in 1776, 248 years ago, exactly when Pluto was exactly at this point 250 years ago. Okay? Give or take a year or two. Oops, excuse me. Sorry about that. Slipped out. So there's a tremendous churning going on in the United States right now, which is having shockwaves and ripple effects all across the world. Because in the United States, you could break it up into 4 cycles. I've done this before on other videos. Pluto cycles. And let's say this is 1776, and this is 2024. And this would be, okay, this is a 250-year journey, okay? And then it starts all over again. Over here, we are reconstituting the Constitution. And we're going to go forward here, and it's going to reach a splendid, splendid peak of wonder here. And then it's going to degrade again over here. The degradation happens roughly every 62 years. So, here's the expression, hard times breed strong men. Strong men breed good times. Good times breed weak men. Weak men breed hard times. Pretty much everyone in America, in the world right now, was born from here onwards. If you're from 70 or 80 or 90 years old, you were born back here, and you were living through World War I and World War II. This was the big cusp of change around here. But now we are over here where everything has completely degraded, okay? Just as everything had kind of degraded over here, where enough is enough is enough. The founders said, enough is enough is enough. We are no longer willing to put up with these despotic, maniacal emperors, kings, religious freaks. We're going to run our own place the way we see fit, and it's going to be run by the people. We the people, we're going to choose representatives who do the work for the people for the benefit of all of us. And that worked very well. There's a lot of turbulence, of course. American history is very turbulent, and we give ourselves permission to do that. And about, let's see, right, I guess that was about the 1870s, 1890s, America had turned into this extremely vital place where Pluto in Capricorn was firmly established, but it was in its place, and America was mostly consisting of small family farms, small family businesses, private enterprise, private banking. Everything was done person to person, gold to silver, silver to gold, barter. There was transportation. There was, the early days of the Industrial Revolution, and so on and so on. Tremendous abundance and freedom. Tremendous. Unheard of. And that bred good times. And then from about the 1950s, 60s onwards, really, really good times. People born here, they call them boomers in America, they're enjoying all of that. But the decay sets in here, especially here and here. And that's what we're seeing right now, because what has happened is, as inevitably as the founders realized and knew and was enshrined in the Constitution, they knew damn well that this would eventually devolve into this. And it would have to be reconstituted, because that you cannot take that freedom for granted. So the people who want to reconstitute the Constitution are having to fight against the depravity and the perversions of power, money, and control, as symbolized by the Pluto elites, the plutocrats, 27.5 degrees in Capricorn. Very unhealthy expression. So we're living through that right now, and it's having shockwaves across the rest of the world. Tremendous amounts of power that are vested in the United States are expressed through the American global financial system. And that's where I like to talk, because we can actually see the unraveling. We've got a crisis point coming up in the middle of July. Okay? Love driver, the Chevron deference, yeah. We've got a crisis point coming up where Mars, we'll talk about it closer to the time as well, where right around this time here, give or take a few days, Mars, okay, right over here, is going to be conjoined with Uranus right over here in Taurus. So that's not a happy alignment. That to me indicates tremendous conflict and riotous, chaotic, violent instability in the global financial system. You could call it an earthquake, a volcano, like an explosion, some kind of catastrophic, some people call it a black swan event. Something will crack. What's it going to be? Who knows? Right now, there are a lot of places around the world that are going through their own crises points with their financial system. In particular, Japan. Okay? China is already at a major crisis point. Let me go over here. Give me a second. So Japan is already at a major crisis point. It's been degrading for some time, but they have some very, very big banks that are basically imploding and crashing, right? Those banks own, Japan owns a lot of United States treasuries. Japan owns them and buys them and keeps them for the reason of stability. Because, like it or not, America and the American dollar is still the most stable financial entity on earth. I know it's shocking to say that, because the reality is the American dollar is, I don't know, it's a fiction. That's being polite. I'm being polite right now. So, because of the way the whole global financial system works, which is based on debt, it's reached a zenith point where the whole concept has very little room left to evolve or grow. And all the major global financial people know this, but they don't have an exit point. They don't have a way out. A long time ago, people used gold and silver because they were very, very easy to understand. Gold does not decay. Gold is very hard to dig out of the ground and process it and purify it. And pretty much everybody on earth respects and understands and values gold. There you go. They call it the gold standard. It's not very exciting because it's just a lump of metal and it just sits there. It's not like a Amazon corporation that grows and grows and grows where you can make profits and dividends and whatever. It's just a lump of metal. The beauty about it is that it's stable and everybody understands it. It's a universally accepted truth that gold is a store of value. And of course, in the American system, in the whole global system, that became very inconvenient because if you have a genuine, honest, solid, measurable point from which anything and everything can be valued in terms of gold, like how much gold does it take to buy this tank of oil? How much gold does it take to buy this house? And so on and so on. That phenomenon has been dissolved, corroded, eroded through, I would say, deception, betrayal, lies, promotions, and marketing, in the very unhealthy expression of Neptune. But it's been taken so far that it can't really go any further. And billions of people across Earth are starting to realize, wow, everything that we thought was valuable and that was money is just fake. It's just, for example, like if you had a treasury note or just, a dollar bill or a piece of paper, like some countries have very, very fancy paper notes because they don't want them to be copied. They don't want to have, what's it called when you have fake money? So, counterfeit. Okay, so America prints $100 bills, $20 bills, $10 bills, fives and ones. They print them and now they make them in such a way that it's actually pretty hard to counterfeit. People do counterfeit. There's a lot of counterfeit money in Africa because the counterfeiters can get away with it. But here's the trick. This is where the trick is. The United States dollar is counterfeit itself. It became counterfeit when in the 74, the gold standard was abandoned. And the dollar, the value of the dollar is simply now by decree. In other words, whatever president or the U.S. Federal Reserve chairman or the United States Treasury, whatever they say is the value of the dollar is the value of the dollar. It's not based on any form of reality except what they say it is. And so it's kind of like a moving thing. When it had the gold standard, it was fixed. In other words, an American dollar was fixed at blah, blah, blah ounces of gold. That's it. The problem with that formula is that it makes it very hard to counterfeit more dollars into existence. And that's what the Federal Reserve Bank likes to do, because that's how they make themselves rich. They print more bills than already exist. So example, if it was a pure gold standard and 100 billion dollar bills were created in 1971, and those were the only bills in existence, then we would still have a gold standard. And things would be very, very simple. Bitcoin is turning into that today. But the thing is, when money today is fabricated on a computer, in other words, let's say you're an American citizen or a Western European or something like that, and you have access to credit cards like Visa and MasterCard. And you get a package in the mail and it says, hey, you're approved. You've got $10,000 credit right now, and it's only going to be only 5%. And you kind of go, wow, I've got $10,000. And so, like a lot of people, you just go out and you spend it. And then you read the small print, like you have to pay back that money. You know, we're giving you $10,000, but you have to give it back to us because we're just kind. We're Visa, we're MasterCard, we're the Citibank, we're all the bank. We just do that. I'm the U.S. Federal Reserve. I will issue $100 billion to the banks so that they can relax a little bit as the inflation bounces up and down. Calm down. I'm going to issue $100 billion. No problem. I'm going to send $500 million over to Ukraine just to smooth things out a little bit. They do it because they can. They just press buttons because the money doesn't exist. It's just a fabrication. It's pure fiction. And so, in a nutshell, what happens is that the more and more and more and more they keep pressing the button and issuing more and more debt. In other words, here's your little Visa card. Okay, go spend it, have fun, take a cruise, buy a nice bicycle, I don't know, go out for dinner, have fun. Check your bill every month and pay back the minimum. Give us like $78 a month and we'll be fine. And so it goes on and on and on, and you spend $10,000 into existence. Well, that $10,000 never existed until you started spending it, and the only reason you had it is because somebody at the Visa MasterCard place issued that card to you so that you could splurge. So, of course, what happens is classic, good old-fashioned inflation. Inflation is a very old phenomenon because previous civilizations figured out something very, very similar in their own time, in their own way back when. In Rome, they had gold coins. But when the government realized they keep wanting to spend more and more money to go more and more wars, they didn't have enough of the gold coins. And so what they would do, they would sneak off into the back room in the treasury, and they would start snipping off bits and pieces of the coin. So the coin would be smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller of real gold. They would tell you it's the same thing, but it isn't. And then the government would steal the gold that they snipped off and print new coins for themselves, and then pay themselves and their armies to go to war. But they stole that from you. Get it? Same thing with inflation today. So every time the United States Federal Reserve Bank issues another $1 trillion, which is happening in the United States, that's happening every 100 days. Every time they issue effectively another $1 trillion through the U.S. Treasury and into the Wall Street and into the banks, into the stock market, that's $1 trillion added to the trillions of dollars that already exist. It looks great on paper, but what's actually happening is the value of the pre-existing dollars is now diluted by 1 trillion. So it looks like the numbers go up. And if you're already very rich and you own lots of homes and houses and real estate and stocks, it looks like you're getting richer and richer and richer for not doing anything. You're just incredibly intelligent, and your money manager is incredibly intelligent. It's nothing. It's just freaking theft from the people. Because with the inflation, most of that theft comes from the little people, the dumb people, the retail people at the bottom. Inflation is the most powerful, most invisible, most deceptive, most effective form of theft on earth. And that's why the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank is the most powerful organization, institution on earth, more than the United States federal government and the military put together, because they can issue the money. It makes them richer on paper because asset prices are going up and up and up, but it makes our dollars worth less and less and less and less and less. So that's why you have to have more and more and more dollars to buy a $400,000 house today, where a few years ago that same house had a dollar sticker price of $250,000. That's why today you're seeing these videos of these people who do this Walmart shopping trick to illustrate inflation every year. They go and buy a bunch of stuff at Walmart. They do it on their app, on their phone, and they keep it for their records. And then exactly 1 year later, they go back and buy exactly the same stuff using the Walmart Reorder app. And one guy just issued his today, and there was like a 300% increase in a matter of about 3 years. It was just staggering. You know, whatever. It wasn't just food. It was buying all sorts of bits and pieces that you could buy from Walmart. And so, there you go. 29% interest. Yeah, so again, with credit cards, mortgages, car payments, those are the big ones. The big ones are mortgages for houses, car payments for cars, credit cards. They all have interest rates. So let's say I'm the Federal Reserve Bank, and I have a connection with the Treasury, which is the federal government over there. That's me, Jerome, and my buddy Janet over there, under the auspices of Grandpa Joe. Like, go for it, guys, just go for it. I sit there in my office and I go, click, $100 billion. Click. That gets pumped into the economy. The Treasury issues all that stuff. Beautiful new dollar bills are printed. $100 bills are printed out. More and more currency is issued direct to the Wall Street and the main retail banks, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citi. And then now those institutions can print money themselves, and so on and so on. It's like a kind of a daisy chain. And what that does is it prints money into existence. It's not really money, it's currency. And every time, every day they do that, the value, the actual value, the purchasing power of your dollar goes down and down and down and down. But it happens very gently that you don't notice it. The problem is, in the last 3 years, the greed, the lust for power and money and control from the elites has become so extreme that they just couldn't help themselves anymore. And they basically printed money at an astronomical rate beyond anything that's ever existed in humanity, except perhaps before World War II in Germany. So it's a phenomenon, exists. It happens in Venezuela, Zimbabwe, parts of South Africa, Argentina. These are all very recent places. Turkey, Sri Lanka, and other places do similar things because the governments and leaders don't know what to do. So they just print more money. They didn't work for that. They didn't earn it. They just print it. It looks legitimate. It looks valuable. It looks really, really important. But every time they do that, it devalues the existing currency. And they don't want you to know that. They want you to just keep playing the game. Play the game with them. But billions of people on earth are calling it out and say enough is enough is enough. And so we have the early symptoms of warfare that are coming out expressed through anger and violence all over the world. It's everywhere. It's all over Central and Northern Africa. It's throughout the Middle East. It's happening and brewing over there in East Asia, around China and that area. It's extreme turbulence. But a lot of that turbulence is because of the inequities and the unfairness that happens as a result, if you follow the chain all the way back, to what they do up at the Fed. And how many people are living in Ecuador or Peru or the Congo who are thinking in the back of their mind, you know what? The real enemy is Jerome Powell up at the Fed. They're not thinking that because they can't see it. The veil is too effective. And so all they know is that there's tremendous inequity and disruption in their local environment. And eventually it gets so bad it turns to war. And that's what's happening across the world. It's fermenting right now because even very large economies are getting so distorted because of inflation that they don't know what else to do except to go to war. In other words, they want what we've got, we want what they've got, and so on and so on. So it's bubbling up, like who's got the most muscle power, who's got the most jets, who's got the most bullets, bombs, aircraft carriers, and so on and so on. But the war is bigger and deeper than that. The actual war is in the currency markets, the FX markets, FX, foreign exchange. The war between the United States dollar and everybody else. And that's what's happening right now. And we're reaching a crisis point. Every other country is directly or indirectly vested in the US dollar. The US dollar is not going to disappear or die anytime soon. It is losing its preeminence because of inflation and the abuse from the elites, but it's a very big, long, slow process. But there is a point of critical mass where it is going to go gadonk, and we're going to go from a unipolar world to a multipolar world. And we're living through that right now. It's going to happen right now. It is happening right now. And we, the people, and the banks will see it vividly displayed in the world markets, especially when we have little moments coming up like this crisis, okay, in the middle of July. Just keep an eye on the global markets. And I'm pretty certain that there's going to be some kind of very, very kind of a frightening shock somewhere. It might be with Japan. It might be with Iran. It might be with China. It might be here inside America itself. I don't know. But it is going to be some kind of shockwave in the global financial system, especially when the moon is in Scorpio. So I'm just giving you guys a heads up. I don't know what to do, how to protect against this, because I don't have any printing presses of my own. I can't print out and create my own credit cards. So I'll deal with it along with all the rest of you guys. I just want to touch on one more thing before I depart here. I'll leave you guys in peace. I follow a few people who are living very precarious lives right now. They're the sort of people that they are risking their lives to do what they do. There's a guy called J.J. Carell, and he's making a documentary. He's titled it Treason. And what he's doing, he's tracking and documenting what's going on in the United States, inside the United States, with all the detention camps that are being built everywhere, all the perversions happening on the border over here and over here, and all the trafficking that's going on between the criminals based over here and their business over here. There's only one word for it. It's just pure evil. Pure evil. And sadly, very tragically and very shamefully, the United States is the #1 consumer and perpetrator of this evil. And the United States government, through their non-governmental organizations and a few other big ones, including the United Nations and UNRWA and things like that, they are funding, facilitating camps outside of the United States, over here, 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 and here to ship more people inside here as fast as possible in the next 4 months. Okay? My personal feeling is that somebody somewhere in the deep state who is determined to hold on to all the power and the money and control is going to do something very despicable to try and disrupt what's coming for us here on the 5th of November. There's a lot of scandalous talk happening all over the internet about this now. What's it going to be? Is it going to be some kind of cataclysmic event over here where it's going to allow the elites to declare martial law? Is it something that's going to trigger a so-called civil war? We don't know. But we are on the cusp, and it's extremely unstable. And it's going to become more unstable over the next 4 months and into early and middle of 2025. So there you go. I'm going to leave it at that. I was staying on here much longer than I anticipated. I hope I didn't wear you out. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I'll see some of you on tomorrow night on Sunday. We'll do a little live stream on YouTube, and we'll maybe do a couple of live tarot readings, okay? So for the time being, good night and farewell, and sweet dreams. Take it easy while you can.